are just finishing up week 2. Let's go ahead and jump on the scales, see how you guys did, and get to our leaderboard.
Stacy, 242.4.
Judy Simpson, 154.8.
And 176.
Paula, 163.5.
BT Star, 139.6.
Jewel Tabor, 285.3.
Adeswa Elihu, 174.6.
Michelle, 226.6.
So in 12th place, after 2 weeks, down 3.6 pounds, 1.56%, Trisha. In 11th place, after 2 weeks, down 4.1 pounds, 2.44%, Paula. In 10th place, down 5.1 pounds, 2.8%, Bianca. In 9th place, down 4.8 pounds, 2.98%, Jennifer. In 8th place, down 7.1 pounds, 3.08%, Catherine. In 7th place, down 9.7 pounds, 3.28%, Jewel. In 6th place, down 6.2 pounds, 3.42%, Adeswa. In 5th place, down 6.8 pounds, 3.65%, Afia. In 4th place, down 5.9 pounds, 4.05%, Mary Star. In 3rd place, down 6.8 pounds, 4.2%, Judy. In 2nd place, down 8.6 pounds, 4.65%, Heather. Moving up to 2nd place, Heather N. Which means locking down the 1st place spot 2 weeks in a row, down 13.2 pounds. 5.16%. Stacy! Good job. Awesome freaking job, girlfriend. Like, way to go. Especially, I look at the first week and, unfortunately, when we decide to lose weight, the rest of the world doesn't stop just for us to lose weight. They don't make it convenient. They don't make it easy. Like, family stuff still happens. Drama still happens. Sickness still happens. Like, distractions still happen. Life still happens. And so even with the family dynamic and the family stuff and which can cause emotion, which can lead to eating like it has in the past. 13.2 pounds in 2 weeks. So incredibly proud of you. Awesome freaking job. All of you. This week, new decades. Mary Star is in the 130s this week. Afia is in the 170s this week. And Heather is in the 170s this week. Awesome freaking job. Heather, what was your starting weight the very first day ever?
265.6. So I'm down 89.4 pounds.
Dude, you're so close to 100 pounds.
Yep.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
I'll be there.
Oh my gosh. Good freaking job. That really is amazing.
Thank you. It feels amazing.
And alumni, I will touch base with you guys tomorrow, but so the email was typed up last Tuesday to go out to you guys on whose weights would be missing, but it's still, I looked this, I think it was yesterday, Heather sent the message about it was still in the draft folder. I did it at the airport and somehow when I sent it, it didn't go through, which sent it in the draft folder. And I had no idea that it did that until you said something and I went and looked for it. I'm like, no, I sent that. And then anyway, so we'll touch base on that. So anyway, the alumni are down a total of 40 pounds, 3.18% in 2 weeks. Awesome job. The newbies are down a total of 41.9 pounds and 3.72%. So I will say the alumni, you guys gained some ground this week on the newbies. You cut their lead in half. But after 2 weeks, the newbies are still whomping on the alumni.
Boo.
We're coming for you, newbies.
Oh, you know what they say, talk is cheap. Anyway, love you, long time. All right, so this week we're going to talk about something that is really, 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 really important for all of us to recognize when it comes to being overweight, because being overweight is not logical. It is 100% emotional. There is nothing about being overweight that is logical, like nothing. Like we know that we shouldn't eat the treats. We know that, we have to go buy a bigger size and we should stop. Most of the time we can recognize when we've overeaten and when we haven't eaten things that are healthy is the truth. But because it's emotional and because most of this, even a lot of people who don't have weight issues necessarily have issues when it comes to emotional eating. And every single person that I have ever met that has a weight problem is an emotional eater. And when you look at emotional eating, there's so many different ways to emotionally eat. Some of us eat when we're sad. Some of us eat when we're frustrated, which these are all emotions. When you think about emotions, sadness, happiness, loneliness. So emotional eating can be for any of the emotions. So again, it can be when you're sad. It can be when you're frustrated. If you had a frustrating day, if you've had a frustrating doctor's appointment, if you had a frustrating day at work, if you've had a frustrating day with your kids, if you've had you almost got in an accident or you did get in an accident and there was something frustrating or you've gotten a tip with a family member. It can also be when you're lonely. Nobody's around or you're feeling alone or whatever the case may be. A lot of parents whose kids leave the house and deal with, loneliness. So loneliness can also be an emotion where we emotionally eat. Sadness, happiness, frustration, all of them. And some of us, if we're looking at when we emotionally eat, we can say, oh, well, I mostly do it when I'm mad, or I mostly do it when I'm frustrated, or I mostly do it when I'm sad or when I'm happy. And then there's some of us that are completely overachievers and we do it in a lot of them. So emotional eating is always triggered by something. It's always triggered by something. So a lot of times when I'm working with clients, they'll say, well, Carmen, I'm an emotional eater. And I say, okay, well, what triggers you to emotionally eat? And unfortunately, most people have no idea what triggers them. And one of the things that we've got to figure out is what is our trigger for emotional eating? What happens? And what you're going to find out is as we talk about this tonight, once we talk about it, now you're aware of it. Once you're aware of something and you're not just, because part of you haven't even thought about this up until tonight, or you haven't thought about it in a while. So once you become aware of something, then you start seeing it. Then you start recognizing it. Then when you start looking for patterns and habits and triggers, you start finding them. So when I first started tackling this thing called emotional eating, I knew right away, okay, what are the situations that I get in that my knee-jerk reaction is I just want to eat. I just want to self-medicate with food. I just want a cheeseburger. I just want chocolate. I just want da 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 da. All of us have different triggers, but the one thing we all have in common is we all emotionally eat. So what we've got to figure out is, what are those triggers? And once you figure out what it is that triggers you, and what I started doing is I started keeping like a little notepad with me in my purse. It was just like a little thing I got at Michael's, and it was like, it just had note paper in it, had a pen clip to it. And anytime I was when someone stressed me out on the road, like if somebody like had road rage towards me and almost got in an accident or almost ran me off the road, I would want to go. That was a trigger for me. I would want to go through a drive-through and get something to eat, or stop at the gas station and get something to eat. And so whenever I would have this reaction inside of me, a trigger that would tell me to eat, I would jot it down. And I started seeing a lot of similarities, a lot of the same times. And some of what might trigger you doesn't trigger me. And some of what might trigger me doesn't trigger you. But once I was able to identify what those triggers were, then it was like, okay, I can't expect this not to happen again. Like as long as I'm driving on the roads, I'm eventually going to run into somebody who has road rage, right? I'm eventually going to run into somebody who's a jackwad driving. I'm eventually going to have, a tip with somebody I love. I'm a mother of 3. Eventually there's going to be a day where I'm like, oh my, can you just disappear for an hour? Like, can you just go someplace and like, right? I mean, there's going to be times I can't get rid of the kids. I can't get rid of crazy drivers. I can't get rid of, I can't, none of us are ever going to remove all the triggers. Once you recognize what the triggers are, then it's making a plan of attack. And one of my most favorite lines and one of my most favorite things to remind myself of is to attack what's attacking me. And so when a trigger happens, it triggers me to want to eat. So what I do is I look at the trigger and I say, the next time I have a stressful day with the kids, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for a walk down my driveway. My driveway's a third of a mile long one way. I'm going to go for a walk to the end of my driveway and back. The next time I'm lonely and I'm at home at night and I want to eat, I'm going to go do a workout. The next time the next time that I get in a tiff with a loved one, I'm going to go play some freaking music and take a 20-minute hot shower with some eucalyptus in the bottom of it. So it was finding ways of, when this happens, this is how I'm going to respond. This is how I'm going to choose to respond instead of reacting to what's happening to me and choosing to self-medicate with food and try to, eat because let's just be honest, does eating make any of those things better long-term? No, it actually makes us feel, we eat, it feels good while we're eating it sometimes. And then as soon as we're done eating it, it's like, oh man, I just messed that up. Crap. And so what I want to know from you guys is, what would you say is, as we've been talking, what is one trigger that you have? And again, none of this is about being perfect. This is about starting you down a path. This is giving you the start on the path to the playbook. So what I want to know from you is, if you're looking at your life, what would be one trigger that causes you to emotionally eat? And just off the top of your head, make your best guess of the next time that happens. Here is what I'm going to do the next time that happens.
So just one trigger, huh? I can think of a lot. I would say tired and nervous. I think my go-to for right now is water. I'm drinking a lot of water, so to kind of get my tiredness out of the way. That's what.
So you're saying being tired and nervous are a trigger, and one of the ways that you've been dealing with those is by drinking water. It's really good. So when you're tired, you drink water. When you're nervous, you drink water.
I've been drinking a lot more water.
I think that's amazing.
Okay, this is something that happened the last 2 nights. I got a hold of extra sodium from a supplement that I thought would help me to not hurt so bad from muscle fatigue, joints, and all that stuff. And just walking around with way too much salt in my body is miserable, as people know. And so the last 2 early mornings, I was awake and I wanted to eat my morning snack. And I couldn't figure out what to do to not do it. So I ate it that early. Then I was able to fall asleep. But I don't know if this is practical or not, but I have a recumbent bike in my room. It's a seat that you sit in, not a tractor seat you sit on to ride a bike. And I'm going to ask my husband to help me get it plugged in and ready to ride for like 5-10 minutes or as much as I can handle it, just to get my mind off of it. And that's all I have.
I think that's amazing. Again, it's just, listen, all of us are, like, if you think about most of your day, for most of your day, you are strong. But there's just these little moments where we want to give in. And so if we can get past the moments, 80 to 90% of your day, you're strong, you're committed, you're like, yes, I got this. But these little moments come in. And here's the most beautiful part of all this. Every time you overcome those moments, you are getting stronger. You are building your willpower muscle. It is building your identity, your vision of who you're becoming. And it's reaffirming that identity. Every time you say no to the emotional eating, it's like, yeah, I'm not somebody who does that. I'm somebody who can resist. I'm somebody who can say no. I'm somebody who eats according to my goals, not somebody who just gives in because I want it. And so you get stronger as you move along. The same struggle it is today with emotional eating is not the same struggle it always will be. But at the same time, every time we give in to emotional eating, it also reaffirms the identity of, see, I'm an emotional eater. See.
Mm.
So it's creating this whole new identity. And before you know it, like, you will just know I'm no longer an emotional eater. Like,
Hallelujah.
and you'll know that you've overcome that sucker.
Okay, so I have many triggers as well. One of which is just being awake and breathing. But one that is more noticeable would be being bored. I notice when I'm bored and kind of meandering around without a purpose is a trigger, which can happen quite a bit. But for instance, like, I've been busier starting this journey with you guys than I have. Like, I do little projects here and there, and I've been decluttering. And today I took all the books off the bookshelf and I Lysol wiped them. And I'm like, wow, okay, there's 2 hours without being triggered. You get your mind somewhere. But I really like the idea of going for a walk because I have quite the driveway as well. And I'm thinking, when that trigger comes up, you tell the fluffy girl, like, okay, you're going in timeout. We're going for a walk. And I think my 2 older kids could come with me too. And I think that would be a really beautiful thing all around, because just, hey, come with mommy, let's go for a walk, and, more active. And I think it's all around a really good idea. So I'm going to try that one. I love that.
So my biggest triggers in this season right now is, I hate to say it, but my children, and we homeschool, we're together all the time. I'm going through menopause and they're going through puberty. And so what I found is I need really good, adequate sleep, as do they. And if I don't get that, that's when I find like that conflict causes me to want carbs. So one of the things that helps me quite a bit is that putting a podcast in and just taking a walk. And sometimes that's with them and sometimes that's without, but that just does reset me. But also, if all of us exercise before we do school in the morning, it's like night and day. And my triggers aren't as much. I'm not wanting to emotionally eat, but that's a huge one. And then of course, margin. If I don't put enough margin in switching from homeschool to work to all these things, like I get so stressed, and that causes me to want to stress eat too.
Yeah. And listen, like especially when you're being an intentional mother and you're not just mothering by default, you're mothering by design, it takes a lot. It's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of consistency. It's a lot of choosing to be patient, even though you just want to be like, how many times do I have to tell you the same freaking thing? So there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm in a season right now of like, my kids are what I don't know of any mother who is, especially, I almost think it's harder to parent by design than it ever is by default, because it takes so much more effort. I look at my friends who their kids have nothing. They're just on their phones and on the TV all day long. And I'm like, oh my gosh, some days that'd be so much easier. I know you choose not to do those things. So it takes that extra effort from you.
And that's self-care, right? Like if it's less than 6 hours sleep, I know I have to really be on my game. Otherwise, it's not such a good day. So I have to be intentional with me going to sleep, me getting the rest. And yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
I identify with all of these things. So the first thing that I wrote down, the first thing that I wrote down was when Alan went out of town, the kids were little, we would have a junk food party because we didn't want to have it when he was home because, his health is important, like ours wasn't. But the big one that I'm dealing with now is being in the car. And before I started the biggest transformation in season 5, I didn't even realize that this was a thing that I did. Like it was almost Pavlovian. Like I got in the car, oh yeah, I'm hungry, and I was in a hurry when I left, so I didn't get to eat. So Burger King. And the thing that I do, my list of actions is actually longer than my triggers. I don't know how that happened, but I take an apple with me. That food is like the perfect portable food. Yeah. And I don't have to eat it. But if I'm hungry, there it is. And now I'm having something that's good for my body and good for my digestion and good for my waistline. I don't know. It's working so far.
Okay, so my one of my biggest triggers is feeling hungry. So it could be there's a lot of things that can lead to feeling hungry, but if I've had all my food for the day and maybe I've made my window too short or whatever it is, then if I feel hungry, the first thing that I do is remind myself that hunger is not an emergency. And the second thing I do is go ahead and fill up my water bottle and plan to like just drink the whole thing. So this is a half gallon of water, just chug it. And that's usually what will help me shut it down.
So for me, what I'm noticing, I have so many triggers because I am an emotional eater and I really don't discern when I eat. But one of the biggest triggers here lately has been being in the kitchen, cleaning the kitchen after dinner, and having food out and putting up the food and taking cheat bites. Oh, well, as I put the turkey up for tomorrow, I'll just have a bite. And then that small bite leads into another bite. And so couple things that I've started to do. My kids are teenagers, so now they're cleaning the kitchen, so mom doesn't have to be down there. But then the other thing that I'm doing is I'm just going upstairs. Like tonight, there's still food out, and I'm like, after this call, I'm going right upstairs. And I'm going to be okay with the fact that if my son is doing homework, my daughter just got for practice, I'll be okay with the kitchen not being clean because I know that that is a huge trigger for me. And last week we were talking about the night when I ate the pizza off the stove because I was in the kitchen. So I just cannot be in the kitchen. Last night, I just couldn't. We cleaned the kitchen, we had an early dinner, it was clean, and I just went upstairs. So that's how I'm dealing with it. Just taking myself out of the situation, removing myself from being around the food and just figuring out something else to do.
I think my previous season, I worked through a lot of triggers. So like it was almost kind of like strategizing, like, oh, this trigger is coming and it's coming this way, it's coming that way. So I feel like I learned to combat a lot of those triggers. So I'm just going to kind of highlight my now trigger. But when you had said the deadline, because when I signed up for this second season, I set some deadlines like this date I'll be here at this time, and not hitting those deadlines has really triggered me because of an expectation. And so things that I've been doing is going through old food journals through like last seasons and looking at my body patterns has been helpful. And I think it's important for me to share because I think a lot of women struggle with this. It's not just me, you know? And I definitely turn on my sauna and go take like a 10-minute nap in my sauna. That helps me all the time. So, and then I just get refocused. And then the beauty of that is when I get to the end of the day, I'm like, yes, I did it. You had said that what muscle do we want to become stronger? Like the giving in muscle or the muscle of just the self-control muscle, you know, knowing that the program works if we work it, and we're going to get stronger each day that we're following it.
Yeah.
Hey, so this week I actually experienced quite a few, and it kind of all snowballs into one, but the main issue is my sleep schedule. And I ate candy, and I did a lot of digging as to why I gave into that. And I also had 2 nights in a row where I had panic attacks. So there's like a lot of things that lead into why I'm not sleeping and then what happens when I don't sleep. But the big thing is the sleep, and then I'm tired and I eat and I'm stressed. But Mary Star turned me onto something this week, and I kind of started digging deeper, and I'm still working on that. But I have also found that digging into some praying about it, and I've been hopping on the elliptical every night, and that's been helping, especially with my late night eating craving habit, and just forcing more water when I am feeling like I need to eat or my stomach's grumbling and I think I need to eat. So that's the highlight of it all right now.
Sorry, I was muted. And also when that nighttime, when this thing is attacking you, when this emotional eating is attacking you, attack back. Like for all of you guys, like attack back. Don't just like, if you want a snack at night, like honest to God, like when I used to put those signs that said, you're not hungry, you're bored, shut the damn door. Like it was like, Carmen, you're not hungry, you've had your food, and literally telling my body, if you're hungry, there's a bunch of fat on my ass that you can go eat. You're hungry, eat that. Like there was so much power in talking to the inner fluffy person. Like it made me feel like, yeah, freaking, it was like me against this inner craving, me against Barbara. Like finally I had to name her because I felt like I was talking. So it was like I would talk to Barbara, right? She was like the inner fluffy person. And literally talking back to that sucker. And you know how good it feels at night, at 10 o'clock at night, when I feel like I want something and I'm like, oh yeah, Barbara, you want something? There's some nice juicy fat right on my ass. Get that. That's what you have. sucker. And it just feels so empowered. Even when I say it now, like my husband would be like, who are you talking to? I'm like, my inner fluffy girl. Don't be alarmed. He's like,
I'm still coming up with a name. But yeah, I am definitely digging deeper with that. And I didn't do that before.
So I don't struggle. I struggle with emotional eating, but I do it in reverse of how a lot of you do. I have a tendency to punish myself by choosing not to eat. So, and the trigger for that is always stress, mostly from my company. So even this week I struggled where on yesterday, it was 8 o'clock at night and I had not eaten anything. I had drank maybe a quarter of my water or a half of my water. And that was kind of where I was at. And I had lost the need to nourish myself. I felt like, I think I feel that my whatever the situation is more important than myself. And it burns me every time. So, and I have been working on this for a while. I think it comes down to planning and making sure that I have adequate food and also giving myself permission to stop and scheduling for myself time to stop. And then I did something very different. I normally do this silently to myself and then I just suffer through. But last night I called a friend and I said to Heather and I told her, said, hey, dude, it's like 7:30. Here's how I'm feeling. Here's what I'm doing. And she was able to help me get to a solution and to stop long enough to make a better decision than what I was choosing to do last night. So I definitely feel like that is a continuous issue with me that I need to work on, and I need to plan better to overcome that, because in the long-term ramifications of that, I used to do it for days. Right now, I'm just doing it normally now. Like this is the first time in a while I've done that, but I used to go days where I would eat maybe 500 calories if I was lucky.
Hello, how are you? Sorry, my voice is coming in and out too. But thinking about it, I think one of my biggest triggers, like you said, we kind of like learn habits while we're growing up. My mom's a workaholic, so whenever we got picked up from school, it'd just be kind of convenient to go get food somewhere. So I've noticed, not so much in the morning because I get up pretty early to go to work. But in the afternoon when I'm driving back from work, that's when I'm like, oh, well, maybe I could just stop at Dairy Queen. It was a hard day today. There was a lot of frustrating things. Let me just stop at Dairy Queen. And then I'll find a path to Dairy Queen. And then it's just like, then I'm eating a blizzard. So I noticed that about myself, but I'm trying to replace it because I am a sweets person. I do like sweets. So instead of thinking about like sweets in that way, I'm like, well, how about doing your workout and getting your recover in and eating that instead of something that's like loaded with sugar and bad things for my body. So that's kind of how I've been combating that. I think Jewel mentioned that Jen had a recipe for frozen cherries with the recover, and then I mix it, and then it kind of like the consistency of ice cream because of the frozen cherries. So that's what I've been doing, and I really enjoy the recover. So
I think I agree with almost every single one, and all the triggers that everybody talked about, I could put in my list. But probably my number one is driving every day when I'm out on the road to work, because just like Heather said, you're driving along and I start thinking about it's getting close to lunch and the steering wheel just naturally wants to go into McDonald's or Chick-fil-A. And I keep thinking, no, I have food at home. Nope, I got to go to Chick-fil-A. And it's been a battle, but it's such a habit. It's become such a habit because I've been traveling on the road for over 12 years. And that's why I think all this weight just slowly started coming on, because I thought, oh, well, when I get home, I got to get my notes done and I've got to do this and I don't have time to make lunch. And I found that I was continuously going into these fast food places. So the Shakeology helps a lot on the road, but also I've been prepping and knowing that at home I have food that I can eat. And that helps me to redirect of thinking, just keep going. And when I get there, it's already made and done. So that's helped me a lot.
Awesome job. And as you guys continue to be more aware of these things, as you continue to search out some of these, you will find them. You're always going to find what you're looking for. We're never going to find what we're not looking for. So as you start looking for these, and as we're coming into week 3, start recognizing, okay, what are these triggers? And when you start shining light in there and you start shining light on it, what you're going to find is that it's no longer controlling you. For most of us, emotional eating has controlled us for so freaking long because we've been out of control and we almost become a victim of our circumstances, right? But as you start recognizing this, as you make your playbook, as you start making a plan to respond when these things happen, then you're no longer a victim to your circumstances. You're no longer out of control. You actually put yourself in a position of being in control, of knowing what's coming before it comes and knowing how you will react the next time it comes around. And it is so freaking powerful. And this is where you're really going to start to kick emotional eating's butt instead of it kicking your butt. This is where you're going to start to be in control instead of the food, the emotions, the cravings, your day, and all of that being in control. And when you start being in control and you're no longer hiding this stuff, that's where the things start to change. And especially when you start going from a place of this should change to this must change. Because we never do our shoulds. We never do what we should do. But when your should becomes a I must do, that's where the change starts to happen. And so it's not, yeah, I should go through and find these triggers. No, this week I must.